to order. I don't think we have any members of the public here. So there's no public comment, no need for response. We need to approve the minutes from the last meeting. So are people good with them?
They're fine by me.
I am good with them.
Me too. So that's done. And so the first item on the agenda is it Dr. Brown who's going to do it, or somebody's going to give us an overview of how the admin team is divvying up Lily's responsibilities during her leave. And there's Dr. Brown.
Hi, did I miss a question? I'm trying to get logged on. Y'all asked me something and I didn't hear it.
Oh, the first item is an overview of how the admin team is dividing up Lily's responsibilities during her leave.
Oh, cool. Thank you. I appreciate that. I sent a note to the board, a document that has this outline. I can put that on the screen, or if you just wish to reference that. I don't know how the board wish to most effectively and efficiently use this time. If there are specific questions, but I will say that, I just commend the amazing team that we have for the many efforts. Replacing someone, not replacing, but standing in for someone as talented and as hardworking as Lily is not easy. So what we did is we divvied up the responsibilities, the typical responsibilities. We put those in the chart that we share with the board. And as things come up, we are working together closely to manage those needs. Mary and I have been meeting with individual administrators, our principals. We go out to schools and do the visits like Lily has been doing. We continued that piece. When there are questions from administrators, they tend to call folks on our executive team based on their areas of responsibility. So from there, it's going, for the last 2 years, it's been an ongoing, the struggle has been real for 2 years anyway. So we're all having to do things that are typically outside of our normal areas of responsibility, which has become the norm. However, I feel like we have a good plan for the time that Lily's going to be away. And, she plans to be back shortly after the new year. But again, if there is particular questions that the board has, we would love to answer those now. Oh, I just lost it.
I have a question if no one else has a question. So I see underneath Amanda's category, it has budget and hiring. Is hiring not underneath Bob in terms of?
Yeah, I think this notion of hiring is on everyone. Yeah, I would say primary area of responsibility has been Bob and with the HR department, but I think with the staffing shortages being one of the most pressing challenges in our organization right now, all of us have come to the table to reallocate time and resources and to think about new and better ways to recruit. So putting that on this document wasn't to say that Amanda was taking it on as a primary area, but we just wanted to note that she is now going to be doing some of that in addition to everybody else.
Which is what Lily did have a very supportive role in relation to HR. She came to HR meetings and she, would talk with me about agenda items. So now it's Amanda as kind of the other admin person besides Bob, who's has some significant responsibility for HR. Is that correct?
Yeah, and Bob and Amanda, feel free to jump in here now. And what I do know is that, on any given day, like today, well, I shouldn't say any given day, every day, there seems to be some type of a needed investigation that needs to take place immediately. And some kind of quick and swift action that needs to be taking place immediately. And frankly, Bob, we've been pulling you to do that for the last 11 years. When that happens, that does take away time from some of the strategic efforts and initiatives that you had planned for that day, like a staff meeting like you were in today when I came in and pulled you out because we needed to do something that was pretty sticky. So in the past, Lily would pick up and keep that ball moving while Bob was tending to, sometimes it could be a multi-day investigation. And now when needed, we look to Amanda to keep those things moving, because I think they were all they're all needed, and they're all require a sense of urgency. But Bob, Amanda, please jump in on that one.
No, I think Doc, you said it perfectly.
Yes, and I think you know, adding me on HR, Bob and I have always worked together. We remember that the business office does a lot of the position control efforts around the hiring. So we've always been a part of that. I think the chart that Lily pulled together, exactly as you described, boss, is right, like just taking the roles that she was playing in support of human resources. And then if there were questions about, let's say a principal was considering additional staffing, or we needed to fast track something, you know, that the business office naturally would be part of that, but we might just be part of the creation of those positions as well, like the upfront part versus like the process after the discussion was had. So I think that sort of, you know, was alluded to in that document.
Yeah. I guess a question that I have is, you know, when I look at that chart, and I think this is a lot for the team to cover, as Dr. Brown said, for somebody who, you know, is as talented and on the ball as Lily is. So I guess my question is, in the time since Lily's been gone, have you had to make adjustments? Have there been places where, you know, there's need that wasn't anticipated in the original plan?
I would say we're no different than teacher teams, grade level teams, departments, and folks in our buildings right now. Yeah, there are things that are coming up each and every day that we did not anticipate, and it is pulling us from stuff that we thought we would be doing, and quite frankly would have had time to do. So in that regard, we are no different from anyone else, and I would be disingenuous if I said, yeah, we're managed with this, and we aren't all working more, and we aren't all stressed out more, and we had planned for this. I mean, some of these significant increase in cases was not something we planned. And, you know, when Amanda is sending me a couple of dozen, her and Carrie send me a couple of dozen emails on the weekend, and we're all trying to navigate whether or not how we're going to staff a school on a Monday. That is something that has challenged us and stressed us. And yes, Lily was doing a lot of that before. But, you know, there's some things that have happened even that he put her being here would have stressed us. So I hope I'm giving you an answer to that. Yes, it's hard. There are things we hadn't planned for, but I am not going to sit and make excuses, because this is something our grade level teams and nurses and everyone else is dealing with every single day too.
And as a related question that really doesn't have to do with Lily's being on leave, but, you know, I know that you were worried before the Thanksgiving break about COVID cases increasing, and particularly how it would impact staffing. And so what's the update since, you know, it's now a week and 2 days? How's the staffing situation?
Yeah, one of my colleagues said it best on a call I was on today. It's day to day, Moira. I mean, we were able to be in school today, and we made it through the day. We were able to figure out how to staff our buildings, and things went well. So, you know, we're going to try that again tomorrow, and hopefully the next day. And hopefully we can get to the winter break without having any major disruptions in what I'm now calling operational. The closings we're seeing all over the country aren't necessarily connected to the rise in cases. They're operational closings. Folks just cannot operate business that day. And I was feeling bad about that and guilty about it as school districts who must and should be serving communities having to close down because of operational challenges. But you know, I was away this weekend trying to get something to eat in restaurants, and those places are closing down too. So I can't think of many businesses that are not having to have operational closings. But again, I'm trying to have that be a last resort. But again, it's day to day.
Yeah, and related to that, last time I spoke to you about this, you shared with me, your thinking about, how you would avoid any kind of closing, even if you have a staff shortages. And I think it would be good for the other board members to hear, what your philosophy is around that. And approach.
Yeah, no, we've talked to our administrative team about this as well. I mean, there's a minimum number of adults we each have determined need to be in place to run a building effectively. But running a building effectively may not mean we're going to have the same class size scenarios and staffing ratios that we have on a typical day. It may not mean that we would have a regular schedule. It may look like adults having a certain number of young people assigned to them for that particular day in a way that we can maintain safety and tend to student needs. But that may look completely different from a typical elementary or secondary day. But there will be adults in the building to make sure we are operating in a safe way. Now, is that the most effective way? I can't say that, but we are open and we will have adults there with young people. So that may look like one adult for every 10 kids. I don't know. And that may be looking like folks working outside their typical areas. We haven't gotten to that place yet. But from my perspective, my philosophy around this thing is if we have adults and we have enough adults to operate a building, what that day looks like is something that I'm hoping that our community will be patient and understanding and flexible with. It may not look the same, but we can operate. But I know not every community is like that, and our community may push back on that too. They may just say, you know what, go virtual all day, which is something I would not want to do. Hope that makes some sense.
As a follow-up, Dr. Brown, do you know if each of our buildings have a fallback plan? So if we were to go all virtual, does each middle school have, say, a Google Meet link that they're sending out and their teachers have something to fall back on?
Yes, Nicole, I've been doing this long enough to, as I'm answering one question, I'm thinking about, here's the next question I hope no one asks me. And you always ask that one question. So I think our folks have thoughts. But as far as a lesson plan, I can't say, Mary, Bob, y'all correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think our folks have those substitute plans like I have another teacher. Like if things don't work out today, if I get that call in the middle of the night, this is exactly what we're gonna do tomorrow. I don't think we have that document, Mary, Bob. But I think folks have some idea about how we would navigate this. But I can tell you right now, it would be rocky. And that's not to say that's because of a lack of planning. I think it's because of the shifting and different scenarios that we tend to be faced with. And just haven't been pressed to come up with that plan B or had the time to put together a plan B when we probably won't have to implement it. But Mary, please help me out with this one.
Yeah, so as far as individual student needs, the practice at elementary school is to cross-train ESP. And that was happening prior to COVID, but COVID has really necessitated following that so that we have one adult who's trained to work with two students or three in the building in case somebody's absent, because there is a lot of movement this year. So the plan isn't specific. There's a bottom, like we need 20 adults to staff this building. But as far as the specific plan, if someone's out and this is what happens, the plans are more, this person is always going to cover this role and that role, typically. Here's the duplicity in the system, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else have any questions about this particular topic, particular agenda item? Chris?
I don't. You guys ask great questions. It's tough in school districts because you can't put into effect an all hands on deck scenario. You know, we all saw what happened in Dryden, you know, so we actually have to go building by building and put in a contingency plan.
I guess one last question I have is knowing that Lily was leading on COVID, and I see again it's underneath Amanda, have we put any thought into tapping Dr. Dundali, our school doctor, to help support in some ways so that we're not necessarily overtaxing our admin?
Yeah, we began some of those conversations, not only Dr. Dundali, but even looking at bringing on additional staffing or engaging with a third party. I think myself and every superintendent in the country is getting these daily emails from companies now that are in business just to manage the COVID contact tracing and respond to these COVID issues. So we're thinking about that now as we, you know, again, we continue to be stressed as an executive team to do this, particularly now without Lily. So yeah, we're in the process. I don't have an answer for you right now what we're going to do, but we are looking at some different options.
Just to piggyback on Nicole's question, and it's actually a statement, but you talked about a third party. With the job market as it is, are you seeing any available employees or administrators that could help support us? Because I know it's limited folks out there.
Yeah, I'm afraid to answer this in the affirmative or positively because you may steal these people that I'm looking for. But anyway, because I know you're looking for people too. Yeah, we have been able to engage some folks. We've had some retired administrators come in and do some things, including helping us with the screening testing. Some retired administrators are coming in and helping us with some other administrative duties on the administrative piece. But yeah, Bob, Amanda, Mary, please jump in here. This has been a struggle too. Some areas we're having better luck than others. I know we're having these Thursday custodial interviews, and that's starting to pick up for us some too. So each area is a little bit different for us. But again, it's been all over the board for us right now.
Thank you.
I'm not sure if you might want to ask if there's any public comment since we started 15 minutes early and I see some folks have joined. I'm not sure. Some of them look like staff, but I'm not sure if we might want to open it up for public comment again.
I don't have a public comment, but Dr. Brown, I would be leery of a entity or enterprise that was just created to deal with how much experience do they even have? I mean, you know, so right, there's quote unquote businesses out there that are forming to try to deal with the new issues that we have, but you can't replace experienced educators and experienced administrators trying to balance staffing, right? You know, elementary level, just, you know, I think everyone needs to be a reading teacher, right? And everyone's an educator, right? So it's, yeah. So
yeah.
It's,
thank you.
Know what I mean?
Yeah, no, we're very leery of the other folks who are reaching out, and most of them in the defense are looking to just do the contact tracing pieces. But even that requires some folks to have some understanding about our community, our schools, how to navigate our systems, et cetera. And I think Warrior we may have lost her. So I don't know if Chris or Nicole wants to end this particular piece and then transition to public comment. Oh, there she is. There's Warrior.
I'm here. I was trying to, never mind. I was trying to. So anybody raising their hand for public comment? Emily, okay, Catherine.
Yes.
Hi,
Catherine.
so I don't actually have like a prepared public comment, but I figured since I came in at 6:30 and wasn't really sure what was covered, I just wanted to let you all know that we have a number of Ithaca Teachers Association representatives here. And we wanted to come to this meeting tonight in part because we've been hearing from so many of our colleagues, just in general, how all of our challenging staffing issues are really kind of putting a burden at every single level for all of us, how our shortage of bus drivers are impacting first period at LACS, which is impacting services for students, how our teachers who are teaching 6 and 7 classes because we don't have people to teach those sections, how our substitute shortages are just really, really, really burning us out. And it's a really intense burn at this point. So we wanted to come tonight to just say, hey, we're here, but to also, we consistently hear at the regular board meetings that the committee meetings are the places where this is the table where it happens and the room where it happens. So we chose to be here tonight just to say, we really want to help all of you have hard conversations about how do we, have people who work here consistently want to work here, and how do we solve some of these issues. So I just wanted to say hello and let you know why we're here.
Thank you, Catherine. So the next item on the agenda is we're going to get an overview of, what's going on in terms of the staffing challenges, what's being done to try and address them. So, and then there's going to need to be a piece that has to be in exec session because we will be talking about particular individuals, so, and their employment history. But we hope to hear some information and for us to have an opportunity to ask questions and make suggestions and find out where we are. Sarah Brumberg, is your hand up? No, sorry. It's hard to tell sometimes. Anybody else? Okay. Thank you. Okay, so the next item on the agenda, Bob and Gladira, I guess, are going to talk to us about these staffing challenges.
Yeah, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Catherine, and some of the other teachers. I see Sarah, Matt, and Mike Yerke from Ithaca Subs. Thank you for being here, lending your support and lending your thoughts to the process too. Labor and staffing remain critical issues for not just our district, but other districts around the area and other employers as well. We've done a number of things to really try to get at employees that we might not normally reach pre-pandemic. One of them I thought was really cool is Gladira cut a radio ad in Spanish to try to reach Spanish-speaking folks in the area. That has helped deliver some folks our way. I checked this morning, and it's good to say that we have 12 bus driver trainees on staff right now. Now, what does that mean in terms of getting them actually into a school bus and on the road? It really depends on the person. We started a training program that pre-pandemic we didn't do. So folks were on their own in terms of trying to pass the permit tests. We now have them come in, we help train them. We have bus drivers training them. So we have 12 on staff. Usually it takes at least 2 months, more likely 3, and sometimes longer before folks are able to pass the test and solo is what it's called, drive the bus solo. But those are heartening numbers because transportation was the one area that, you can't pull someone in to drive. They have to be licensed. So it was also one of the areas we had a critical shortage. And it's not over yet. Certainly that's day to day too, but with 12 folks working their way through the pipeline, that's really, really encouraging. We also started open interviews for custodial. So every Thursday, and Dan, thank you very much for sitting in on many of those when I'm doing other things. I only pause because a number of folks that we've had in that process have had bureaucratic delays in Albany. And I can tell you that Albany from certification unit are way behind well, and probably due to the same things that we're all struggling with, staffing shortages. But that's starting to yield some folks too. And teachers, really, we're hoping that in the January graduations from teacher colleges, and Gladier's done a number of virtual fairs and will actually be going back out on the road here soon to do fairs at the colleges. We're hoping to get some folks that way. Gladier also hosted, and I don't want to steal your thunder, Gladier, jump in. You hosted about 4 students from, was it Cortland last week?
Yeah, we had 5 students. So there was 1 from Cortland, 2 from Wells, and then 2 from Ithaca College who came and met with, got to meet Dr. Brown, also got to speak with Director of Special Education in our early childhood and some principals. So these are students that will be graduating in May.
And a shout out to Mr. Ainsley.
And Mr. Ainsley, yes.
I just happened to wander in, but it was nice to see some recruits there, Glitter. It was one of many meetings, opportunities I'm sure you're working on. You just have to be out there and just keep more opportunities, the better. And so I appreciate your efforts, Glitter. And you too, Bob, just so you know.
No,
Thank
Gladier's-
you. Yeah, it was a very nice, intimate gathering, and it definitely gave the students an opportunity to ask a lot of questions. So yeah, so we look forward to having more of those.
A question of, I'm not sure if you have this data, but Bob and Gladiera, would you be able to speak to how many teachers we're in need of? Hearing from Catherine just a few minutes ago, we have some teachers that are teaching 6 to 7 sections. I think having a visual presentation about where we are it's helpful for me. I can't speak for other people, but it's helpful for me to know where our blind spots are and where our teachers need support and what specific areas, and our students, what support they need. If we have one teacher that is teaching 6 sessions, that means if that teacher is out sick, that's 6 sessions of students that are not getting the support that they need. So I think it would be helpful for us to hear the numbers and what areas we're looking for of teachers, and obviously teachers' aides and all of those things too. But I would like to know if we have that data.
We do have the data. I don't have it in front of me. I apologize, but special ed was an area that I'm trying to recall the exact numbers because I had misquoted one a number of months ago, and don't want to be professionally embarrassed by that again. But there were a number of special ed teachers who were, taking an extra course. Now that's not unusual even pre-pandemic at the secondary level for teachers to teach an extra course, and they're paid almost 17% additional in their salary. I appreciate Catherine's remarks, though, that they get that 17% because it's not easy. They're usually giving up a prep or a lunch. They're working the extra hours. They have the additional caseload. So it's not in any way easy, but it wasn't unheard of even pre-pandemic for that to happen. It's happening more often now. And it's also happening where rarely, but still it's happening where they're doing 2 or more courses. So, that's something that's we're trying to work on. Special ed was one area where there was a number. I think it was 10. So there were teachers who were doubling up, and we were filling that with some certified teachers, not certified in special ed, but certified in other areas. I can get the numbers for you. I just don't have them at my fingertips right now, and I apologize for that. And Gladier, I'm guessing You don't have the numbers right there either. All right. Our staff has gone home for the night, so I'll have to pull that and send it to the board. The other thing to move on, we were going to talk about HR office today, and we've been down on employee, at least one employee for most of the pandemic, and right now we're down 1.5. So Gladira, if you could share your screen, we created just a quick document. It won't take us long to go over it. Just sort of give you an overview. So the picture is the HR team. Maybe if you can just enlarge. If you go to where it says 100%, Gladira.
Sorry about that. Yeah,
Yeah,
sorry.
cool.
Someone.
There you go.
Does that look better?
Yeah, I think I
Okay.
can read it, so I'm assuming others can. There's the current HR team. If we just scroll down, I think the HR committee asked for division of duties, who's doing what, and Karen Barden is doing the teachers. Karen currently is part-time. I think that'll last for a little bit more time. She'll be back full-time. Tammy Tabone is doing principals and directors, which is our smallest unionized group. So it's not a tremendous amount of administrative clerical work. Then Employees Association, which is our second largest unionized group outside of teachers. And it's also our most wide-ranging, encompassing one in terms of who they cover. Everything from custodial to clerical to nurses to bus drivers to bus mechanics, etc. And then Management Confidential, which are non-unionized folks. Bianca's new. She came on in late August, so she started out with doing some processing tasks. Now she's taking on paras. She's being trained on paras. That started last week, and also the sub-association. Mark Verede does a lot of the hiring process, so postings and setting up the interviews and making sure everybody on the interview team has what they need. And he also helps with substitutes. That's probably going to go back more towards Mark as Bianca picks up the paras. And Sully is also paras. She does ESP. Currently out on leave, but hopefully we'll be back soon. And we have a couple temps. Thankfully, Janet, coordinator, many of you probably know her. She's a retired clerical in the district, has come back and is helping us out. She's actually helping other buildings out too. And then after her day's done, she comes to HR. And Ann Barnes is here. When she's in New York, she comes and helps out. And when she's in Florida, she does some work down there for us too online. So if we just scroll down a little bit, we just wanted to give you a brief overview of like things that we're working on in HR to help the system become more streamlined and efficient. Again, Bianca, she's just joined in August, so she's really learning the ropes, doing very well, and is currently being trained to do paras. One of the things we're looking at and working on, not just looking at, is creating videos that will be uploaded. One of the things that I think is really cool is the onboarding video. So currently, staff spends a lot of time. It takes well over an hour to onboard any employee, and it's usually not done in a mass setting because we don't hire that way. It's usually one or two people at a time. And then it really does take a personal touch because you're talking about their taxes, their finances, their banks, and all that stuff. So it's not something necessarily is easily done with multiple people in the room. We're going to do a video that's uploaded and helps people fill out the myriad of forms online. They can watch the video, they can pause it, it'll be highlighted, it'll tell them what they need to put where, when, and we think that will help a lot getting folks, up and running. Electronic hiring system, I've talked about this before. We were way down the road with another vendor, and it came finally to the point where they said they can't talk with our current system. So it just fell through, and we started over with a different vendor, school front, and they have a relationship with our current system, WinCap, and they talk to each other. The systems talk to each other, and we're moving forward much more rapidly. That's going to help automate a lot of the documents that currently go from one desk, get signature, and then travel to another desk, sometimes in a different building, wait for a signature there, and then travel on to HR to be processed to get onto the board. All of that will be done electronically at one time. Things won't get lost. Things won't be delayed in transit. It'll really help move things faster along.
Can I ask a paperwork and process question around that?
Sure.
So it's not really about hiring, but one of the things that I'm consistently hearing from colleagues is that the coding of COVID days and getting those COVID days back into your personal bank of days is a really, really, really slow process. And I know that we've been told it has to happen at HR, but I'm wondering if you can give an explanation why our building secretaries, our building administrative assistants can't just code those days the way they would for sick days and personal days. Why are COVID days different?
Yeah, thank you. It's a great question. In actuality, the coding of any days has been taken away from the buildings. It has been for a little over a year. It was part of an audit process through WinCap to centralize the control of those days. WinCap is really reticent to open it back up to the buildings, although we are putting pressure on them to the extent that we can to do just that. We would like it back at the building too. We found it to be a much more effective process than what we have right now. So as it stands currently, it still has to be HR. It does take a lot of time, primarily because of the staffing shortages in HR. And I'm on record with all the union heads, and I hope they're sort of pushing that out to their members too, that we will make it right. No one has to worry. Everything is captured electronically. It will happen. It's just going to take some time as we work through it. And having Janet and Ann sort of help us with other things is freeing up our staff to be able to get to those. So slowly but surely, I hope you're finding that those days are being corrected. But great question. Thank you.
Hey, Bob, just
Yeah.
crazy. What's the lag we're seeing and the turnaround with the COVID days?
I mean, it's a long lag time. It's because there's so many other it's a study in falling behind is what's happening in HR over the course of the pandemic and our staffing shortages here in HR. So as we fell behind, there are things that are required, reports to New York State, certification issues, tenure issues. There's so many things, pay issues to get people paid correctly and on time that are before making sure that people's time is sent back to them. We know we have it, we know we're going to do it, and we know no one will be harmed by it. So it's not something that's like on the front burner, but it's on the burner. And it is something that I know the folks who are in charge of it are starting to pick away at and take care of.
So,
Just,
go
sorry,
ahead.
Chris. I was going to say, just to follow up to answer your question, it's anecdotal, but I have a colleague who has 3 young children who still has numerous COVID days from last year that haven't been given back yet, and then is continuing to accumulate them this year. And while I know that she knows that she will get them back eventually, but when you have 3 young children and limited sick days, it starts to feel stressful as you see them decline. My one thing that I wanted to ask in relation to the coding and relation to WinCap, I know, Bob, we've talked in the past about if the days didn't have to be coded, if, say, rather than this number of sick days, this number of personal, this number of family, if it were just 15 days a year, would that alleviate any of that struggle?
No, that was brought up in negotiations and both sides backed away from it for various reasons.
Should we be discussing negotiation conversation right now? Just a general question.
It was a
Yes.
general question, but it was that particular question as it relates to ITA was brought up. It was a large discussion and negotiations with both parties.
Okay.
We're not able to reach agreement on.
And if I'm hearing you correctly, so it's a process thing where the days, where the application of days fall in line. So certain days being put in place fall precedents, and then the COVID days are basically being applied last just because of the way things are falling behind. So certain ones have priority.
Correct.
Okay.
I think, I always try to be realistic but also be optimistic. And so I think we have turned a corner in HR in terms of starting to play catch up, rather than what has happened is it just felt like we were falling farther and farther behind every week. I'm starting to see that we're catching up and actually addressing some of these issues that, it's just the nature of the game. This is traditionally I don't say there's any slow time in HR anymore, but we're not doing as much hiring, that'll be ramping up again, especially for teachers in April, as it does. So I want to be realistic and not overly optimistic, but I am seeing improvements in catching up rather than falling behind. All right. So, Gladira, maybe if you can scroll down a little bit more. The other thing, I don't want to skip over anything that's really important, but I also don't want to necessarily just read it to you all. Yeah, awesome. So I think a lot of our focus, especially Gladira and the rest of the HR staff team, when we have the time, is to start, putting things electronically, and that's going to help tremendously. We're also going to add an administrative assistant position. I think Dr. Brown was going to chat with the entire board next meeting about the need to really have an additional person. COVID and the pandemic hasn't made it easier. It's actually more documentation that's required. And I always think a number of our departments are short-staffed. I think HR has been short-staffed for probably 10 years, to be honest with you. So we are going to try to get another person to be in HR and help alleviate some of this. Another cool thing, and this was Gladira's idea, so I don't want to steal it. Gladira, you want to talk about HR on the road?
Yes.
All
Sorry,
right.
can you hear me okay? I'm juggling new screens. I'm so sorry. Yeah, so HR on the road. The idea behind that is going to the employees. So HR will be going to the employees. And we are still working out the schedule. But basically, there will be an HR representative at a building, let's say, you know, for a couple hours. And again, we're still working out the schedule. But this will allow is for employees to go in their building, speak to an HR representative, and let's say if it's an attendance issue that they need resolved, if it's a pay issue, HR related, then they'll have an HR representative, an opportunity to visit with an HR representative in their building. And so we're hoping that that also will reduce the response time. So, you know, giving some balancing the paperwork with also an actual live person, and making it more convenient for our teachers, for our staff, for all the employees.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I thought that was great. I mean, sometimes a personal touch is so much better than an email, and you can convey a whole lot more information in, you know, in a way that you really can't in an email.
Right, and a quick back and forth where, you know, the employee asks a question, the HR rep gives a response, but the employee doesn't really understand it, can say, wait a second, help me understand that. Much quicker.
That whole transaction could probably take 5 minutes, but in emails, it could take 2 days before, right? It's a great idea. We'll be doing transition planning. I just put there, you know, we can talk in executive session. I don't want to name employees, but we'll, in the next 6 months to 6 to 16 months, HR could be losing to retirements 2 of our most senior people with institutional knowledge and et cetera. So we really have to start transition planning now and getting folks on board and training to happen. And that's, yeah, I mean, that's the HR overview. We have to have a more intimate discussion in exec session on some personnel items, but
I just have a question that goes back to earlier part of the presentation. So in terms of staff, teachers, I would say it's for the most part, who are doing, you know, extra assignments. What's the process for filling those extras or getting people on board for those extra assignments?
They volunteer. So usually the principal of the building or the department leader will say, hey, we have this need. Does anyone want to do it? And so it's volunteer. I'm not saying that, you know, when your principal says, please, can you do it? There isn't some, you know, some feeling of loyalty, hopefully there. And, but it is voluntary.
Okay, thank you. So are we ready to move to exec session?
I'm
take
ready.
a motion. Yeah.
I move that we enter exec session for the purpose of discussion regarding proposed, pending, and/or current litigation, collective negotiations pursuant to Article 14 of the Civil Service Law and matters leading to the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, and/or removal of a particular person or individual.
Second. All in favor? Me, Nicole? Yeah. Okay. All right. So Emily, are you going to put us in a breakout? Yeah, you did. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
You and I don't want that came back, Mr. Malcolm. Everybody-
Did
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
Moira, you're still muted.
Well, we're back. And we are going to officially call this HR work session. We're putting it to bed. We're ending it. What do we say? We're ending one of these things. Okay, so we say bye till next time.